Fabian.
I didn't, but thank you for noticing. They got to bring this to me so I can figure all of this out. And then I got in trouble for not looking at the screen. So I'm trying to get that straight because now they can't. Goodness gracious. Bailey, is there any way you can help me where I can look at this straight on? My better.
All right, we're recording now. Got the transcript going. All right, we can start you off. Gabe Bach from Texas.com was going to start us off.
All right, Buzz. I want to ask you a couple things about Billy. What is one thing that you took from your 2 years working for Coach G that you still carry with you today, you still use in coaching?
Wake up real early, try really, really hard, and then do it again the next day.
Play hard, play smart, play together, right?
Yeah, those were Coach's words. I've tried not to ever steal anybody else's words like that, but that was his mantra when we were here, and I thought to some degree we were able to do that.
Do you talk to your players going into this game about who Billy is, his history here, your history with him?
No. I try to stay away from any sort of conversation, particularly about an opponent when it involves me. Obviously, Joe Fultz, who's played for us at Marquette, was with us at Virginia Tech for 3 years, and then is here now. So Joe's been with us 8 years. Obviously, Joe signed at Texas A&M when Coach was the head coach. BD, who we recruited when I was here, is now here as a GA. So those two guys are aware of the relationship. But I'm not sure that the rest of Coach Lair, who I worked for at Colorado State, I went from Colorado State to Texas A&M. So, but specific to our players, I don't mention it. The smart ones know that Coach Gillispie used to coach here. The ones that are close with BD and Joe, they know. But as far as attention that I bring to it, no, sir.
Thank you, boss.
Next up is Chip Howard from Sports Talk.
Buzz, any update on Emmanuel Miller for tomorrow evening? Would he be available?
I think the answer, Chip, will probably be determined on how he does today and how he feels tomorrow at shoot-around. We didn't have a full all-out practice yesterday because it was the day following a game, but he did participate in that. And then we'll practice one day before. We try to practice whenever it is that we're going to play the next game. So we don't practice today until 6. So we'll see how he does today. He'll practice today, and we'll see how he responds on Wednesday morning for shoot-around.
When we talk Sunday, obviously the game was just over. After you've looked at it, is there any one or two takeaways after watching the tape of that game Sunday that you came to the conclusion?
Yes, sir. I think we allowed the ball to get to the paint way more than what I thought when I spoke with you last. We gave up 30 points in the paint, which is too high of a number. And then the other category, which I know we talked about, our turnover rate was just way too high. And so we need to grow in both of those areas tomorrow, and that will be a different challenge against Coach's team. But we can't allow the ball to get to the paint at the rate that it did against New Orleans. And then obviously we can't give them the ball. Tarleton forced 38 turnovers in their game last Wednesday. So we'll need to do a better job taking care of it.
I think maybe Billy's ideal game would be 39-38 with the hand-to-hand combat the whole game. How do you kind of change that narrative?
I think how Coach wants to coach and how he wants to play, that's how his team is going to perform on both ends of the floor. They're going to run 2-game offensively. Defensively, they're going to contest every dribble, every pass. They're going to play incredibly hard and give all effort, or they won't play. And that's how he coached at Kentucky. That's how he coached at UTEP. That's how he coached at Ranger. That's how he coached at Texas Tech. That's who Coach is. And whoever is going to play for him, that's how they're going to perform or they won't play.
Thank you.
Next up is Travis Brown from the Bryan College Station Eagle. And just a reminder, if you have a question, send me a message, private message.
Hey, Coach. Remembering back from your introductory press conference, I know you mentioned that you gave Coach Gillispie a call after you took the job. Why make the call, and what did that call mean to you?
I wanted to call Coach. I was on the way from Blacksburg to the airport. I had a list of people that I called: Coach Orr, who I work for at Navarro, Coach G. I thought it was important to call Coach, obviously, because of our tenure here and our relationship before he hired me and even after he hired me. And so I didn't, as many people, obviously, when that sort of stuff is brewing, it's hard to control it, so to say. It moves really fast. And so I just wanted to call those that have been a very integral part of my career. Obviously, some of them are still on our staff, but yeah, it was circle of life or whatever the words would be. You know, I never envisioned that I would be a college coach, much less be a college coach somewhere where I had worked before. So it was not a long call. There's no long calls with Coach, but he has been super to me in every possible way since I've been here. But he's been that way to me my entire career.
Yeah, and that's kind of my follow-up is how frequently after you left A&M were you still in contact with him, still pick his brain about basketball and life and whatnot?
Yeah, I would say, Travis, probably I left here in June of 06. And, when I was an assistant at Marquette, we played Kentucky in the NCAA tournament, which would have been 07, 08. Yeah, so I would say since June of 06 through now, I would say Coach and I have been consistent in how we've always communicated. To be very honest with you, Travis, basketball or the tactical part of basketball has been very little. I've never, even when I talk with Coach, when I work for him, I didn't talk to him a lot about basketball because the answer is always, we have to play harder. We have to play harder. We have to play harder. So anything that we talked about with basketball was always about recruiting. And, since he's been at Tarleton since the summer, and then even when he was at Ranger, I was just a respectful Coach. How you doing? Anything I can do for you? How you been? What's going on? How's your team doing? That sort of conversation has been consistent since I left from working for him.
Appreciate it.
All right, next up is Zach Taylor from WTAW.
Yeah, Buzz, with you guys not having any tournament play this year, or at least early on, that season opening tournament, these non-conference games are always important, but how much more important are they with fewer games to play before conference?
Yeah, I agree, Zach. It obviously it's unique to college basketball history as far as what's taking place. Every couple of hours there's a team that pauses for 14 days. The calendar of what you thought the games were going to be is ever changing. Teams are scheduling games on Twitter, finding games, neutral site games to play 3 and 4 days after they come to an agreement. So I think any game that you get to play, Zach, ends up being important, because just because it's on the schedule now doesn't necessarily mean that the game is going to take place. It's the first time in my career that I've never played in one of those tournaments. And typically speaking, we always have 1 or 2 games prior to those tournaments. So only having one game in November has never happened. So that's not specific to Texas A&M or to Buzz. I just think it's the uniqueness of what's going on this particular year. So all of it is important. And to be frank and sound like a coach, it makes the value of practice even more, because we have practiced less than we have ever practiced going into the month of December, having played less games than ever before. And I understand that's probably the same relative to the opponent, but kind of how you handle all of those things and the efficiency and how you handle it becomes paramount.
Thanks.
All right, next up is John Wilson from KBTX, and then Andrew.
Coach, have you thought about what it'll be like when you are on your bench and you look down on the other end and Coach Gillispie is on the other bench going against him with everything that you guys have been through together?
Probably not, to be honest. You know, I've tried not to ever play anybody that I have a great relationship with. We played Johnny Estelle, who I used to work with in an exhibition last year, because they're a part of the Texas A&M system. That was the initial part of how this transpired in playing Tarleton. Obviously, I used to work at New Orleans and am very close with the coach at New Orleans. The reason that game was able to be scheduled was because of our relationship after having to pull out of South Dakota. So categorically, though, John, I've always tried to stay away from competing against those that I have relationships with. We played Troy last year. It was already scheduled, and there was a contract on it before I was hired. Scott Cross was the first player I ever recruited as a college coach. So I haven't thought about it. I know they'll play as hard as any team in the country. I know every possession will be monumental on both ends of the floor relative to how those kids have been prepared to play. I think that it's all of us, the fans, those that are able to come, I think they'll all be happy to see Coach relative to what he gave the program and what transpired not only when he was here, but when he left, what was able to take place, which was, in my opinion, some of the residue of what he did during his time here. And so I think the last time Coach coached here would have been, I think that would have been in 2012 when he was the coach at Tech, would be my guess. Obviously, I wasn't here then, but for him to come back as a part of the Texas A&M system again and all of that, I think that's pretty cool. But as far as kind of how I've processed it, to be honest, I've just been studying them and trying to figure out if we have a chance to beat them.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, next up is Andrew Hattersley from Gig'em 247.
Hey, Coach, I was just wondering, looking at Savion Flagg, as you got to coach him over the past year, where do you feel like he's grown as a player outside of just scoring the ball, but in the other areas of his game?
I think where he's improved is his mentality and how he approaches his work. I think he's a lot more serious about his craft. I think he understands the value of a possession more than he ever has. His body has dramatically changed. He was probably the best in our program in regards to handling his body during the pandemic while we were not around one another. You know, he's as lean as he has ever been as a college athlete. And I think that, along with how his mentality has continued to change in the right direction, in my opinion, the combination of those two will allow him to be effective in a lot of ways. Took 3 charges on Sunday, had 6 offensive rebounds, a career high. So very, very encouraging, because I think his mentality allows him to be successful in a lot of different categories.
And then just for some newcomers, given that you didn't have any scrimmages or any, games against other opponents before Sunday, is there going to be kind of a learning curve for some of those newcomers learning to play underneath you? And how do you kind of maybe speed up that process, or how beneficial could it be for them to, to see the film from Sunday and move forward?
Well, just like it would be, Andrew, for any freshman, every day is a brand new day. For this group of freshmen, not just at Texas A&M, but everywhere, there's been some days that were skipped because of what we're going through. Obviously, these particular kids don't know they've skipped those steps because they've never been here before. And so I do agree with the intent of your question. Like, we've had to try to find ways to be creative and how we can help teach them so that they can have quicker traction in what we're asking of them. Similar to the question earlier, they're going to play less games than any freshmen have ever played for sure, which means there's practices. And like you're saying, typically speaking, you have 2 exhibitions or 2 scrimmages, and then you have normally you're going to play 6 to 7 games in November, and we played 1. And so we've tried to find ways as a staff, not just me, I've been involved in it, but how can we help them in different ways? What is it that I can help them with in texting, in watching tape, in Zooming with them specific to this category of their game? And how can we assign certain categories to each assistant? I don't know if we've handled it right because all of this is new to everyone, but we have tried to attack that issue, I think, thus far in an effective way. But you're right, and 1,000% right in what you're saying.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, we got a couple more questions on the queue. We'll go to Mike Lucas from KAGS and then finish with Travis Brown.
Hey, Coach, you've mentioned a couple of times how hard Tarleton State is going to play. So how do you get your team ready to play against a team that's going to go, 150% on every possession from start to finish?
I think it's good, right? Like that's what every coach wants. And so I think to be able to compete against someone who plays at that level with that intensity, it's a good barometer to see where you are at. And I think our kids will recognize that from the very beginning. Are we under, are we matching, or are we superseding their effort? And I think you'll be able to diagnose that. They'll be able to diagnose that in real time. So I think it's always a barometer of where you're at anytime you play against a team whose coach demands what Coach Gillispie does. I think it's not in a demented way, in a very respectful way. I think it's a good barometer for where you're at.
And going off that, does that make this kind of the, maybe not ideal, but a high quality non-conference early season opponent to get a feel of where your team is in that regard?
I think coaches' teams have always been in the upper echelon relative to effort, no matter where he's been. Even the team at UTEP that won 4 games, it wasn't due to their effort. I just think that's who coach is. That's how he coaches. That's how they practice. And that's what he's literally made his career off of. And so I think in that regard, anytime you have an opportunity to compete against someone who is excellent in any category, particularly in giving their best on both ends of the floor every possession, I think that's a good thing.
Thank you.
All right, we'll finish up with Travis Brown from the Bryan College Station Eagle.
Yeah, Coach. I know with asking earlier about how non-conference changed in this COVID year, how is the formation of your rotation and the way that you kind of figured that out changed this year, and how do you use these non-conference games to kind of figure that out? I know you use like 10 or 11 guys, I think, in Sunday's game.
Well, you don't have as many reps, and there's no way around that, Travis. And so I don't know that that's necessarily fair to each of the kids, because there's less games, so there's going to be less reps, which means there's less of an opportunity to figure out a variety of different groupings. We went to small ball earlier than I anticipated we would because of foul trouble and lack of productivity at the 5 spot. And I thought that the small ball group was effective. But I do think every coach is probably struggling with how to best answer that question that you just had, because it's just less games. And so you got to kind of hurry up and figure it out, which makes the value of the reps that they are getting in the games, even though they are less, they kind of end up, it's like a AP honors class. It's weighted more. And so you have to make decisions based on less reps. And so that's what I was telling Jackson Robinson, maybe with 2.5 minutes, I guess it was the last timeout of the game, the last media timeout. I was telling Jackson, like, Jackson, these reps are really, really important for you. But the same could be said for any other player, particularly new player, regardless of when they play, because there's going to be the volume is going to be less than ever before.
And then as a fellow North Texas guy myself, I have to ask what's going on with the Blue Jays hat?
Well, so it's a long story. I have a very rhythmic routine in the weight room and on the treadmill, and I forgot my hat this morning. And so all of my hats are in the trunk of my car. And so one of our office workers was in the front of the office when I got off the treadmill, and I said, "Hey, can you go get your favorite hat out of my truck? I would just like to have a royal blue one because I'm wearing blue shorts." And she came back in with the Toronto Blue Jays hat, and that's in honor of Jamie and Cassius and E-Man. So they'll like it. But I said, "Did you not see the Ranger one?" And she said, "Coach, I like this one because it had the bird on it." So I don't think Peyton knows baseball teams. She just picked it because it had a bird on it.
That's awesome. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks for asking. Where are you from in North Texas, Travis?
Dallas.
What high school did you go to?
In First Baptist Academy.
Yeah.
So
You kind of look like one of those
Highlands.
First Baptist Academy guys.
I don't know what that means.
I was just trying to be funny.
There you go. Thanks, Coach.
Yes, sir.
All right. That's all the questions we have for you, Coach. Thank you.
Okay. See you guys later. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Coach.